Welcome all you lovely people to another r/malicious compliance video. Our first story of the day is by Baseless Earth 12. You want me on light duty low hazard work because I failed the same urine analysis test that I have failed the last 7 years for the exact same reason and that I told you I would beforehand? Okay. First off, let me explain. I've been prescribed 20 to 25 milligrams of Adderall XR for going on 10 years now, so we'll always test positive for amphetamines. I told the safety guy at work beforehand that I would fail and why for the last 3 years. Never been an issue, especially because I'm not working for the DOT side of the company, just the repair and maintenance department for the cans. Quick note, I currently and previously worked at this company off and on. Had to leave the first time to finish building/repairing the roof of my house. The second was due to a certain pain in the butt virus. The job entails building and repairing dumpsters, referred to as cans, from the little 2-yarders, the ones that typically get flung around and crushed like tin cans in movies, up to the massive 40-yarders, which are basically removable dump truck beds and typically used for road and construction debris. Anyway, so on to the story. I remember it like it was yesterday, mainly because it was. I got a phone call on Tuesday of last week at 7:23 p.m. from the testing lab about the results of my pre-employment drug screening test. At the time, I was helping my mom clean up after dinner, so I didn't get the call. I called the number left in the message as soon as I got back to my phone, not even 20 minutes after the call. Please call back within our normal business hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or leave a message about your inquiry. What? So I leave a message and ask them to call me back as soon as possible. The next day, lunch rolls around at noon with no phone call. Okay, bit annoying, but whatever. Call the testing center and they say that the doctor who called isn't available. So I leave a message for him and am told to check back later. I relay this to my manager/shop foreman and he is just as confused as I am. My manager then calls up the safety guy and asks him what to do in a case like this. Now, I don't know what the safety guy's deal is, but he doesn't like my manager much, and he doesn't really like me either, so he puts me on low risk light duty because of the failed test. Apparently, it's less likely to injure myself or others with a high-pressure paint gun and a razor blade and a cheap handle to scrape the old stickers and paint off of rusty and jagged cans than it is to wear a full set of protective welding gear while not moving more than a few feet at a time. At this point of the day, there was only 2.5 hours left in the workday, with only 3 cans left in the shop. One was already painted and just needed the company and size stuck on it. The other 2 needed a not insignificant amount of work. One had one of the pockets that are used to pick the can up with the truck practically torn off. The other's front was caved in pretty significantly. So what did I do? I complied with Danger Dude's demands and only scraped and applied new stickers, and took 2.5 hours. To apply only 2 stickers and remove 3. All the while complaining about how dangerous the razor blades were/are, much to the amusement of my 2 coworkers and manager. And I will be doing this until the testing center finally gets back to me again. The best, most ironic part? In the past 5 or 6 years of welding/fabric cobbling, I've only been burned or cut exactly twice. Using one of the razors, I get 2 to 3 cuts or whack my hand off or something every single sticker. Update, the lab finally got back to me and has asked for proof of prescription. Unfortunately, the most recent bottle's label was tossed out in Florida to transport tiny seashells from the beach. Thankfully, I still have the paperwork that came along with the prescription when I had it filled back in March. I'm still gonna drag butt until further notice or told otherwise. My manager/foreman came to the can shop specifically to avoid the intercompany politics, but here we are. I hate drama, but it follows me everywhere. Considering the potential legal ramifications of having somebody that tests positive for amphetamines having some kind of in-workplace issue, do you blame the company for trying to play it as safe as possible in this situation? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by 360 Entertainment. Double my workload? Fine. Hey everyone, hope this pandemic's been treating y'all well. Figured I've covered a lot of my military stories on here, and it's time to move past that and go into my old security gig. I have a lot of stories from there, and figured I'd start with some malicious compliance. So this company was a bit different from what I was expecting as far as security goes. You know the stereotype, everyone's 40 pounds overweight and all they do is the occasional walk around a building before going to a guard shack and sitting around all night. That's not what this company was completely about though. The company primarily did patrols for various clients and made stops at designated areas. We also answered alarm calls on top of that. Now, this company did have a few stationary sites that I worked from time to time, but I was primarily a patrolman, which I didn't mind. Now, the events. My overlords at this company were a charming couple. The owner was a lifelong policeman who took a chance after being denied a promotion and started this company in the 70s, while his wife handled the business side. Both were nice enough, but listening to reason was another story. New accounts were regularly added to our routes, sometimes with little or no notice. Adapting to the changes was usually not a problem until they became a problem, that is. On one of our overnight routes, the overlords updated an existing account. The owners of the account wanted more weekend coverage due to issues with disgruntled staff and had asked for 3 more stops at their site on Fridays and Saturdays. Normally not a problem until you take geography and basic timekeeping into account. Now, for those unfamiliar with the layout of the Kelso/Longview area, there's a bridge that separates Longview, Washington from Rainier, Oregon. We had a handful of accounts across the river separating the two states, which was normally no problem. The problem started with one of the larger sites wanting 3 more stops, and you had to wait till roughly 1 a.m. to hit the stops. This stop alone took about 15 minutes since you had to unlock one of the main gates to enter, drive around to make sure there were no open doors, lock the gate, rinse, and repeat. Our shifts ended at 5:30 a.m. and we still had over 100 stops and, on a regular night, drove around 100 miles give or take. So I wasn't the first to try and conquer this. That honor went to another patrolman in our company. This guy tended to be on the overlord's crap list most days for his attitude, but he was a solid worker. He definitely bit off more than he could chew with how this route was redone. He attempted to try the route using his normal methods, but ended up going 2 hours over. He was of course reprimanded for not being able to complete the shift on time. The next time he had this route, he decided to cut his lunch hour in half and barely made it on time. He then got reprimanded a second time for not using his lunch as intended, and told the overlords he was refusing to do this route on Fridays and Saturdays anymore, as he rightfully thought it was ridiculous. Now comes my turn. I took a look at the sheet and started formulating a plan in my head for how to best tackle this route. After a few minutes, I think I was able to come up with a possible solution. I end up doing the first half of my shift, cramming all of my normal stops into the first 5 hours, taking my lunch around 1 a.m., then taking care of my extra stops in the last half, usually finishing up around 5:15 a.m. Of course, this meant I didn't have time to wash my truck at the end of the shift, but the bottom line was held up and the route was finished. I did this routine for about 4 weeks when I was finally talked to by my immediate supervisor. Apparently, the overlords finally saw what I was up to and weren't too happy. My supervisor tried threatening me with a write-up, but I didn't back down and told him I'd keep doing it that way since there was no other way to do the shift. He dropped the issue and went on his way. After that, the overlords tried having someone they trusted do the route, and he ended up being as late as the first patrolman. After this, the overlords realized maybe this isn't a feasible route and took the extra stops off of the property. They weren't happy for a bit, but they calmed down after a while. About 2 years after this, they again tried something similar, but that's another story. How dare OP not bend space and time to get more work than possibly is doable in that amount of time done in that amount of time? Absolutely unbelievable. This next story is by Manuel Ham, How I Sold a $16 Cup of Almond Milk. This is a few years back when almond milk was still new to Dunkin' Donuts, but we had a customer in the drive-thru that wanted a large cup filled with only almond milk. Me taking the order told her that's not something we really do, as the milk has a 50-cent upcharge for maybe a few ounces, and a large cup will literally be a whole box of almond milk. I don't freaking care what it costs, you will sell it to me. Alrighty then, cue the malicious compliance. I tell my manager over the headset, you heard that right? I'm charging her for 32 almond milks. She laughs and says the customer is always right. So the woman gets to the window. Normally I would tell them the price before they handed me payment, which was $16 plus tax right now, but she basically threw her credit card at me. I asked if she wanted a receipt and got, no, just my freaking drink. She left, and we never saw or heard from her again. Definitely nothing here for OP to feel bad about. It sounds to me like the customer knew exactly what they wanted. You clarified that I would have a pretty big markup and they just threw their credit card at you and said, give me the milk. Yes ma'am, have a nice day ma'am. This next story is by Super Bitter Throwaway. I can only get a tattoo under these exact circumstances? Noted. It's coming up on the 5-year anniversary of this and I still don't regret it. Mom's reached a point where she laughs about it now, so I figured it's time to tell the story. I love tattoos. My mom and dad hate them. Say it's damaging your body, permanent. Pretty sure that's the point, blah blah blah. Mom would say, when you live on your own and pay your own health insurance, you can get a tattoo. So I went to school in Ireland for my bachelor's and grad diploma because I studied abroad, fell in love, and never looked back. I wanted to commemorate my time there and remember it forever. And what better way than to get a tattoo? I'd already gotten a second ear piercing before Christmas and only received an eye roll in response from both parents, but there were still those 2 little rules to consider. Here's where the malicious compliance kicks in. I took out my own student loans, no cosigner, so I was living in Ireland on my own money. Irish health insurance is separate from US insurance, and as an international student, mine was covered by the school, coverage which I paid for. So, conditions having been met, I got an Irish harp on my ankle based on a design I'd drawn myself. I love it. Despite having technically followed her rules, Mom was not happy and insists to this day that I should have been a lawyer. Extra kicker, the harp design was on a paper taped to my door at home. I asked Mom if she could take a picture of it for me without telling her why. She was kind enough to take it off the door, scan it, and email it to me. Are you pro-tattoo or are you anti-tattoo? Let me know in the comments. I personally probably would not get a tattoo, but other people having them don't bother me at all. And our final story of the day is by 613 and me. Be careful what you tell your kids. When I was quite young, around 5 or 6, my parents decided to enroll my brother and I into piano lessons. My brother didn't mind, but for whatever reason, I absolutely hated playing the piano. It just wasn't my thing. I dreaded going to the lessons so much that every week I would pretend to be sick to try to avoid them. Eventually, my parents got tired of these antics and tried to shut me up. My dad said that if you hate piano so much, you can stop going to lessons when you're 10. And it worked. From then on, I never complained and went to all the lessons like a good little boy. A few years go by and it's now my 10th birthday. As soon as I wake up that morning, I excitedly rush to my parents' room and tell them that since I'm now 10 years old, I would be quitting piano like they promised. They were pretty shocked. They barely even remembered the conversation and certainly hadn't expected me to recall it after several years had passed. But I had thought about it every single time I played piano, practically counting down the days until my 10th birthday. To their credit, they didn't push back, and I never went to a piano lesson again. My brother just got his bachelor's of music in composition. I think the important thing is the parents really wanted you to give it a good try. Having done it for several years and now being 10, if you truly hated it, at least you gave it a good go, right? At least it's something that for sure, after spending years with it, you can comfortably say you have no interest in it. I think it's just great that your parents are so involved in trying to get you to learn some extra and interesting things like a musical instrument. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.